Hey guys, I'm here. Last night I went and saw Disney's remake of their classic, The Little Mermaid. And I gotta say, for somebody who hasn't liked like 90% of these Disney remakes in the last few years, I kind of enjoyed this one. I think it actually trades some blows with the original one. There are some things I think the original still does much better, but there are some things that I really enjoyed that they added into this, and some things that this one did from the original that I did think it did improve upon, which is kind of surprising to me. The film is directed by Rob Marshall, who did things like Memoirs of a Geisha and Chicago, which I've not actually seen either of those, but I know they are very much so touted and lauded over as very great films. He has also directed Into the Woods and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, which are of questionable quality in my opinion. And then the screenplay for this is adapted obviously from the original screenplay, which I did see and notice that the actual credits for the original writers of the animated film we're just kind of buried in the credits, which is just a shame. This is why this strike is going on, guys. Not why specifically, but one of the major reasons. Treat your writers well. They wrote a bulk of what is already in your script. The screenplay was written and adapted by David Magee, who has done things like Finding Neverland, which I have seen, and for what I remember, I've seen it was a long time ago. That movie was really, really good. It's about the author and how they came up with the idea for Peter Pan. He's also done things like Life of Pi, A Man Called Otto. Again, films I haven't seen, but I've heard great things about. While this film does tread a lot of the familiar beats that we are used to, it actually reincorporates some things that were actually cut out of the original Little Mermaid due to budget and time constraints, such as Ursula's ties to Triton, their backstory and stuff like that. There's some expansions. There's more time spent with other elements, specifically on building the relationship between Eric and Ariel. There's some really good world building in here, though here and there, it's very much kind of weighed down a little bit with some really clunky dialogue. Like, it's like bad dialogue. Once we're past a lot of the things we need, or maybe the better word is they want us to know, once we're past a lot of that, a lot of those new elements that once they're allowed to breathe, do a really good job at expanding the world. Like, who is Eric? What are his wants, his goals, his desires? And why does that draw Ariel in? To make it a little more less stalkery than it was originally. They really do a good job at building the chemistry between these two and what actually connects them on more than just the surface level, which I really did like. Even Ariel's sisters get expanded upon in this, and Triton's kind of like governing structure, which is kind of nice. The visuals in the film, I really liked it. I know a lot of people were complaining about it being a little too dingy, grim, or kind of washed out in the earlier trailers. And that only really is the case when we're in settings like Ariel's grotto or Ursula's pit or the ship graveyard. Those are the only times it's really like that. Outside of that, it's always very bright, vivid, and colorful, especially when we're within the corals, the kingdom, the fauna of the undersea kingdom, or above sea. Now, the CGI is not always running on all cylinders, but it's not enough to like take you out of it. And one thing that I think they did learn from The Lion King, which a lot of us were kind of on the fence about when we saw those first stills of Sebastian and Flounder, about the realism, about the crab and the actual, just the fish with the dead blank stare. Once you actually see them in motion, talking, acting, expressing, it definitely shows that they learned some lessons from The Lion King, because despite them looking very real, they are very emotive, even Flounder. Now, they're not overly expressive or like the cartoons, obviously, but they do really blur those lines a lot better, leagues better in this, because it allows them to actually be characters and be emotive and expressive in this. Actually, I really did enjoy that element of it, where I was kind of like, oh God, how's this going to work? Because those stills weren't very flattering, and obviously with the internet being the internet, it's going to do what it does whenever you just put something out there like that. The score from this, from Alan Menken, is really good. I really love the new orchestrations for this film, both old and new. There are new songs added into this, though I will say I wasn't a fan of any of them, not at all. I think the new accompaniments for the old tracks are actually a lot more energizing. They really kind of boost and amp them up, though I will say that that is also kind of counteracted, because every now and then they would do this thing in each one of these songs, except for, from what I can remember, this did not occur in Kiss the Girl, but in Part of Your World and in Under the Sea, they changed up the vocal notes on a few of the different line reads, and it throws it off, man. Like, it just, maybe it's because I'm so used to the original, but there's some note choices with the vocals specifically that I just did not care for, which was mildly frustrating, I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, damn, yes. And I was just kind of like humming and bopping along to it, and then there'd just be this note that just kind of kicks you in the shin every now and then. I was like, God damn, stop it. Just let it be. You own the rights, you don't have to change it. But let's get on to that. Speaking of the music, speaking of the vocals, what I liked about this is this cast vocalists, this cast singers. And Halle Bailey, let's start off right there. Her voice was angelic. One thing we always really attribute to animation a lot of the time is just how emotive and expressive and exaggerated they can feel. And there was something about Halle Bailey's performance when she was up on the surface world and experiencing all these things where she just really embodied that awe, that wide-eyed wonder that we associate with Ariel when she's kind of taken aback with all these sights, sounds, and she really does a great job capturing that. And when we get into that whole arc where she's lost her voice, she does such a great job with just her expressions, her eyes, the way that she just kind of says so much with just her face. Oddly enough, like, that's what really blew me away about her performance was her vocals, and that, I gotta say that in the first act, when we're building up to her going to the shore, going to the mainland, I did find her performance a little And I think a lot of that may have been the dialogue, maybe even the direction, because a lot of that dialogue in that first half, first quarter, third, whatever, the first act, that's where a lot of that weird expositional dialogue I was talking about's at. I just don't know how you make half of that dialogue sound well, and it really affected everybody. So it wasn't really just her, I would say, but like oddly enough, once you take away the dialogue, she just like excels, man. She does such a good job. They actually make Prince Eric a really likable character, and he shows how he compliments her. And Jonah Hauer-King does a really good job at kind of bringing this kind of warmth to this character and giving him some depth. And they expand on his character even more. Again, like I said, his wants, his needs, his desires, his goals, and his aspirations. These things that really kind of help anchor him and make him feel like a more natural match for Ariel than just simply being the prince of the movie. He did a really, really good job. Daveed Diggs as Sebastian was really great as well. And like I said, the animation, again, as the crab, they made it with with his eyes, with his mouth. They did these things to make him more expressive. While I would say I do think I like the original voice a little bit more, I do love what Daveed did here. And again, he's got experience with being on stage and performing, and when he got into these songs, man, he really got to excel. And I gotta say that Jacob Tremblay as Flounder, who isn't in a huge chunk of the movie, again, he's kind of supporting cast, he's got way less screen time than Sebastian, but like when he's there, he's great, man. One, he's just a great actor in general, but like his voice, his innocence really does come out of Flounder really, really well. Awkwafina's Scuttle, weird choice, but I found her fine. I got used to it real quick, though I do think Scuttle in the original is just iconic, but she still serves the same purpose. And this isn't her fault. It's just I don't find her Scuttle nearly as memorable as the original. Maybe that's just me. I grew up with the original, so that might just be a me thing. But she did great. She did fine. She got some chuckles out of me. She has her moments here and there where she contributes into the songs and whatnot. King Triton is played by Javier Bardem, which I do enjoy a lot as an actor, where he's usually like kind of these like I wouldn't say over the top. He plays these roles where he's got this really heavy presence. You know, he's there and you feel the weight of him being there a lot of the times. And I didn't feel that here, where you definitely felt that with the Triton in the original. There's this very stern but kind of like broken element to his performance where you could feel the motivations behind his desperation to protect her from what he sees as a threat. And they expand upon kind of the backstory of this whole royal family within the Undersea Kingdom that kind of adds and it informs on his motivations for being as overprotective as he is. So it creates this a little more kind of like a little more layered but a little more reserved version of Triton. Now, let's talk about Ursula, because I think this is one a lot of people would be very on the fence about. Melissa McCarthy did a stellar job as Ursula. She ate that up, and I thought her voice, her performance, the design, the look, her lair was great. She was damn near perfect in this role, man. Her rendition of Unfortunate Souls, it was really freaking good, man. Like I said earlier, they reincorporate some cut content from the original film into this and kind of flesh out her motivations, her exile, her relationship with Triton and all that kind of stuff, and bring that back to the forefront. Though one thing that I was disappointed by was the lack of Flotsam and Jetsam. They're here, they're in the movie, but they have no speaking lines or anything like that, and I really kind of enjoyed those two and some of the scenes that they had with Ariel and stuff like that. The climax was done surprisingly well. It's very kind of nightmare fuel-y. It's really intense. It's really visually just menacing. I love the way they did it aesthetically with the whole final climax bit. Though, despite it being visually interesting, appealing, threatening, menacing, the scene itself kind of lacked the intensity of the original for me. So I do feel like I would still, despite that, I'd still give the point the original there. This one, unlike some of the other Disney remakes that we've had, does not feel necessarily soulless. It's like they did try to do something with this. It does have some energy behind it. It does have some creativity behind it. It's not perfect. There are some things in here that I didn't think necessarily worked, but there's a lot that honestly kind of did. I think this one is a heavy contender for being able to compete against the original, unlike some of the others, which the Lion King one I'm still vehemently upset about. My lord, dude. And Beauty and the Beast, I don't ever want to watch that one again, man. I really don't. But anyway, what'd you think? Have you seen it? Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you're not already. And before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Manny Share, Ryan, Karen, Philly Vane, Yorick, Coruscant, Margaret Grace, Melita, Robert Anguiano, Jeffrey Hale, M. Sephiroth, Jake Trail, Tiff, and Eric Official. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody.